Hi, it's Professor Russet. I wanted to go over the week 4 legal authorities report with you. It's 10% of your grade. It's a minimum of 400 words, and it has 2 parts to it. Once you go into the assessments, you're going to see there's a portion that has all the instructions. It's about 2 to 3 pages. And then there is also another portion that has a template. The template is what you're going to fill out and actually submit for a grade. Okay, so let's get started. So the attorney has asked you to put together a chart and a report for another presentation. You did such a great job for week 2 that he's asked you to do another one, and it's on different types of legal authorities and how they are used in the profession. So in the instructions, it actually has, and again, I've printed, but I'm a printer and a highlighter, all the sources that you're going to be using. These are the primary and secondary sources. And then on page 3, it's got the binding and the persuasive sources. Okay. It also has what you're going to be writing in your narrative. Okay. Again, I've highlighted. It's up to you if you want to do that, but all the information is in the instructions. The template also has instructions that are repetitive that were in the other portion for the instructions, okay? So that's super helpful. You don't have to go back and forth. So what you're gonna do, so let's start with the first part, which is the primary and secondary sources. So the first one gives you an actual example. It's Miranda versus Arizona, which is a landmark case. So it asks the description. You wrote down case law, or they did for an example. Then they wrote down in that column primary or secondary, and it's a primary source. So that's an example. These are the ones that you have to fill out. Don't go outside these sources. This is what you're using. So first thing you're gonna do is fill out the description, which is right here. This information is in the instructions. Don't go looking for this. Look at your instructions. It's right there after each source. For the last column, the primary and secondary, that you'll have to fill out. Use your lesson, what you've learned in the lesson, to fill that out. Okay? If you're unsure, you can always do some research, but you should have learned that in the lesson. Okay? This is the narrative portion. It lists what should be in the narrative. There are actually 6 things. That's why you see a 3 and a 3. I labeled it. Again, I like to just count like what's required. But here's the narrative. So this is where you're going to type in all that information. And this is going to be the minimum of the 200 words. All I did was I took 400. I divided it by 2 since there's 2 parts to it. But this should be at least, I would say, 200 words. So there's 6 things. I'll read them real quick. You need to define primary sources of law, that's 1. Explain what government branches they originate from, that's 2. Discuss how primary sources are used in the legal profession, 3. Number 4 is define secondary sources. 5 is explain where these sources originate from. And finally, discuss how these sources are used in the legal profession, okay? So then once you're done with that, you're going to see in the template, if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see this one. This is the binding persuasive sources. Again, to give you an example, they used a New York case. Jurisdiction is the New York Court of Appeals. And then you have to determine whether it's binding or persuasive. Again, this information right here given to you in the instructions. Okay, just look at your instructions. This right here, you will have to fill out. Again, from the lesson, okay, what you've learned in the lesson. This is your narrative portion, okay? And here it says narrative. You're going to type in the information here and submit. There are 5 things required for this one. The 5 things real quick. Define binding and persuasive authorities. 2, explain how both sources are utilized in the legal profession. 3, discuss how courts treat binding sources of law compared to persuasive sources. 4, explain the importance of identifying a source's jurisdiction when conducting legal research. And finally, summarize how primary sources can either be binding or persuasive. So everything that is required is in the template. This is also in the instructions, okay? If I were you, as you go through your narrative, check it off. Whether it's on a piece of paper or in your head. Okay, I covered the first one, I covered the second one, I covered the third one, okay? Again, this should be a minimum of 200 words. And then when you're adding the two narratives, you're getting the minimum 400 words, okay? So that should be easily achieved. I think that's it. If you have questions, as always, let me know. You guys are doing great so far. The assignments have been great. The discussions have been fabulous, but keep those questions coming. Hope this helps. Thanks.